Hello, I'm Katie Johnson, and welcome to a pre-recorded event today. So what I'm showing you is 3 different samples from a pre-recorded event that Stampin' Up! Did on Saturday. Did you know that last Saturday, the first Saturday in October every year, is World Card Making Day? And Stampin' Up! Has been offering free events for customers, first demonstrators and customers. And if you want to see them show you how to make these 3 cards, I'll put the link in the comments after this gets posted. But what they did was they talked technique and little tips and tricks for things that you can do with the paper, as well as the projects themselves. And then they gave us all the measurements and they told us what sets they were using. This is one of them. But they made them kind of generic. So for example, if you didn't have this stamp set, you could use any sentiment that you wanted. If you didn't have this stamp set, you need 3 different shapes in here, but it was the technique on this one. This was some watercoloring technique. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of talk you through this one right here, and then I'll show you the other 2 samples as well. Now, the other thing that they did with all 3 of these was they tried to focus on new product and on new colors. So you're going to see that a lot of these projects are using colors that were part of what was new last April. All right, so this one in the middle, this used the earthen textures, which has a big vase shape right here. But look at, we stamped it and used it just as a horizontal piece. It's got a die that cuts out the vase, and we use that die as the label die to cut out the word that we had over here. It's also got a die down here that it does not cut out a stamped image. It's got some folded lines in it. So look, isn't this cool? You can see the dimension in here. It impresses a groove, and then it's got these breaks in between each frond, and so we were able to add some visual texture. In addition to the paper layers, we were able to add some visual texture because of that particular die. But what we did was, all of this is stamped on watercolor paper. So if you look at the images, you'll see how they're not real crisp and clear. And this was the modeled background for that stamp, but then we just went over it with a water brush, a paint, you could use a wet paintbrush, but we use the water pens. And then this one, there's no stamp for it, so we just added some color with watercoloring. So they talked technique through with us on this card. For this project, so for this one, they talked through some of the new colors. This is Bubble Bath, Berry Burst, Lemon Lime Twist, Azure Afternoon, and Lemon Lolly. And like I say, I did not have the stamp set that went with this punch. This is something that's going to be in the upcoming January catalog, but we were able to pre-order it for this event. So anyway, we used this punch, and then they showed us a bunch of things that we could do with that punch. And then this is the one that I'm going to recreate for you now differently. So first of all, I pulled out a piece of designer paper that has some of these new colors in it too. Isn't that pretty? Designer paper here. And look at this carefully. Are you thinking you like that designer paper? And maybe you're saying yes, and maybe you're saying and maybe you're saying, wait, is that designer paper? And the answer is no, it's not designer paper. So they showed us several tricks on this one. I'm going to recreate this one, but I'm going to recreate it using this designer paper, and then I'm also going to recreate it the way that they had us make this. So I'm going to start by showing you the product that they were using. This is a bundle that's in the catalog. It's called Circle Sayings, and they're reintroducing circle punches. So this is a 2 3/8 inch circle punch. If you decide you like this and you decide, oh, that's a fun layout, I'm going to use it with my stamps, just use a big circle. It doesn't matter if it's this particular punch or not. This one is just sized to go with some of the images in there. We used this image for the project we made on Saturday, and I'm going to use the cupcake today. All right, I've pulled out the cupcake and I've pulled out the happy birthday stamp, and I'm just going to set these off to the side. I mentioned that there were new colors, so I also have my Berry Burst ink pad, which is a new color, and my Azure Afternoon ink pad, because I'm going to recreate this one except with a cupcake up there and a different sentiment. And then I'm going to do something a little bit different in terms of colors with the designer paper that's over here. However, I am going to use the same base. This is a Lemon Lolly base. So what they did on here was they started out making a white circle that was punched with the image that they chose. Now remember, I said I'm going to use the cupcake, so I'm just going to stamp that to start with. times because I felt like this was too low and I wanted enough space between them to get my big circle punch into that space. I'm going to point out something here before I put the stamp away. You'll notice, first of all, that I caught some of the ink in the center down there. If this was a red rubber stamp and I pushed hard, I would be worried about catching some of that ink on my paper. With a photopolymer, I find that that's not a problem. I do find I apparently rocked the stamp when I put it in my ink pad, so I got the edge of the ink pad along there. And again, I went straight down and straight up. With the red rubber, there's a little more play, and I might have accidentally caught some of that, but the photopolymer is good for helping to avoid that problem. However, the other problem that is going to happen is that once those red inks hit the photopolymer, it's just the nature of the beast. It will be stained. So even though I clean it off here on my chamois, I love my chamois. I keep it in a plastic box or a Ziploc, and it stays moist for a long time. Even though I've cleaned that, it's going to be stained. So don't worry about it. I always say a stamp that isn't stained hasn't been loved yet. All right, next I'm ready to punch these out. And remember, I'm doing two because I'm going to do one the way that they showed us on Saturday, and I'm going to do the other one using real designer paper. The trick on Saturday was, I don't know, we'll call it faux designer paper. I don't need the whole circle because if you look at the card that I'm modeling, part of it's going to be hidden by this banner down here. So I just want to make sure that the part that I'm cutting off, at whatever line this is, it's parallel to like the bottom of the cupcake there. All right, that will be just fine. Next thing I'm going to do, just because I've got all my supplies here, I didn't have them all on Saturday, I'm going to color this thing. And I do like to color with my blends here. So let's see, I'm just going to go, I think, light on the well, I couldn't decide there, but I went with the light blends for the cupcake paper, and I'm going to go with the dark of the same color up here for the frosting. I decided not to use the Berry Burst marker on the Berry Burst ink because I felt like I was going to lose the definition of the detail part of the stamp. Okay, speed it up through that and speed it up enough that I made a little bit of a mistake. You guys love it when I do an oopsie, right? I went outside the lines a little bit. See right up there on that little swirl? So I do have a color lifter here. I'm just going to try it real quick. And my color lifter came really, really juicy. I feel like I should leave it open so it can dry out a little bit. But it's supposed to dissolve that alcohol and I can move it back onto the image. Actually, I think that worked pretty well. So we might be kind of seeing it because it's still a little bit wet. But once that dries, I think that's going to look just fine. Now, here's the other thing. And then, because I am in my workroom, I have access to my Wink of Stella pen. So, you know, we got to do this for the frosting, right? It's got to be a little bit glittery. Here, let me... You hear that noise? It says push on here. So you have to build up pressure in the barrel so that it's going to help move the fluid down to the brush end. And then, oh, can you see the glitter on my fingers? So hopefully this will show up as nice and glittery. There you go. I think we can see it in the light. Just had to do that. That was the right thing to do for a cupcake. All right, let's see what the rest of this layout is going to look like. So I have my white circles here that have the decorative part on it. I'm going to stamp my happy birthday sentiment on these two strips, but I've got to get them ready with this little banner end because you can see right now that they are cut longer than the size of the paper. So first thing I'm going to do is score at 1 and 1.5 from each end. And if you were wondering what size I started with, I just started with 5.5 inches. Now when you fold on a score line, you fold like where it goes down, you fold away from that. So I'm flipping it over to the back side, which is now raised. I can feel that little bump with my finger. I'm going to put it on my grid paper, and I'm going to mark the exact center on both ends, and I'm going to mark up 1/4 inch and just put a little dot there. Now I can take my snips and just go from that center point up to the dot and then over till the two ends meet. All right, I'm going to fold this down just so I've got the fold lines as a visual for where to put my sentiment. And bring my stamp pads back out. I'm going to put the Berry Burst on the lighter pink, which is Bubble Bath. So this was Berry Burst ink on top of the Bubble Bath paper. And for this one, this is Azure Afternoon paper, and I'm actually going to put Blueberry Bushel ink, which is a little bit darker. Even after cleaning off the blue ink, you can still see that red staining on the stamp. Like I said, that's just the nature of the beast when you got photopolymer. They do get stained with certain ink colors. All right, look how cool this is. I'm just going to fold it like that, and that just gives me my little banner. And then it's always good to bring in your bone folder and make them all crisp. Okay, so we've got the white circle. This one's going to have the cupcake on it. We've got our banner, and now we need these two pieces. You'll notice that these are just 2 halves of the circle. So I'm going to punch out my circle once out of the designer paper, the real designer paper. And I'm going to punch it out once from the yellow. So now I need to cut this in half. Oh, now I have to decide. Do I want my stripies on it going up and down, or do I want them horizontal like on here? You know what? On this one, I think I'm going to have them going up and down because I think, I don't know. This is a hard decision. You can leave a comment and let me know. I've got the horizontal lines on the cupcake frosting, and I've got the vertical lines down here. I think I'm going to go this way. And there are my 2 pieces for the yellow. Putting my model off to the side. This is going to be up high with my cupcake there and my sentiment right here, and this piece underneath it. And this one this was the extra little technique that they showed us to get tone on tone. Just bring in your marker and color some stripes. So I had pulled in my blends to color that. The blends are the rectangular ones. These are alcohol markers. This is the round ones. These are our water-based markers. This is the same ink that's in the ink pad, and there is no reason one or the other for what I use here. I just wanted a chance to show you the difference between the markers. So I'm just going to put some stripes on. And of course, you can be as haphazard or as careful as you want to. And now, you know, you look at this pretty designer paper with all these stripes in it, and you look at something like that, and no one's even going to know that you colored it, that it was not, that it wasn't official designer paper. All right, let's put these babies together. So I have two choices for adhesives here. My choice on this one is going to be the liquid glue because it's going to give me a little bit more of an option for pushing things around to making things slide into shape a little bit better. My reason for using the liquid glue on this is it's going to give me the opportunity to play a little bit with positioning. That liquid glue isn't going to dry right away, so it will give me an opportunity to play around with the positioning. So I want these two to be about here, and you'll notice I also left the top part with no glue on it because this piece has to stick underneath it. Just little construction tips here. So this is going to be about like that, left, right, centered, and about front and center where you would expect to see the main sentiment. And then I can come in with, doesn't matter which one I use here now, this one is going to slip underneath, just sort of as a little frame. And then this one will actually go underneath down here, but I want to make sure I've got enough room for the sentiment. And actually, yeah. Now for this guy, I'm going to put this up on dimensionals. A little bit of the liquid glue in these two positions, but I'm going to put the middle on dimensionals and it will be raised up just in a really subtle way on the project. Do you have a pokey tool? Is this how you take your covers off your dimensionals? It's so easy. All right, once again, the liquid glue will allow me the opportunity to slide things around as needed. The dimensionals behind here will give it that little bit of height, just that little bit of height, but it will also help to secure it to the paper. Pretty cool, right? I may come back and make two changes to that. We're going to set that aside. Notice there are some rhinestones on here, so I'm going to just add those in real quick. And again, my pokey tool, perfect for maneuvering rhinestones and putting them where your eye tells you they look best. All right, so I got a little sparkle around my sentiment. I got my sparkle up there on the frosting. Now let's do the same thing over here. And so there's a really fun layout that you can do, a strip of paper, the little technique of making the banner, of cutting the banner ends and scoring it to get that little bit of extra dimension. Wink of Stella if you have it to give a little bit of sparkle for the frosting. And you can always come back afterwards and fix things that you don't like. Do you do this too? So I decided that I wanted an extra stripe down here. Easy enough to go add it in. And I also decided that I'm going to change the color of this cupcake. So I just felt like that was too much pink. I needed something to kind of tie things all together. You can let me know in the comments if you think I shouldn't have done that. Or let me know in the comments if it's like a grab your breath and go, oh my gosh, you colored on the finished project. What if you messed up? And, you know, if I messed up, then I would have had to take that piece off and put something else on. Very simple, very fun, a fun way to use the punch, a fun way to use any stamps that you have, and to create that cute little banner. Remember that this was a free project offered with the World Card Making Day, and I will have links in the comments to the video so that you can watch Stampin' Up! As they show you how to make the other two and learn some other tips and tricks there. Thanks for watching today, and we will see you next Monday with another video. Bye!